What happens when one of Europe's boldest voices condemns Germany and warns that its policies are pushing the entire continent into chaos? Geert Wilders, fresh off a historic election victory in the Netherlands, has issued a scathing critique of German leadership, calling it blind, reckless, and dangerous. His words are not merely a warning, they are a challenge. Is this the wake-up call Germany desperately needs, or has its decline already begun? Geert Wilders is no stranger to controversy or bold statements. For over 2 decades, he has warned of the dangers of unchecked migration, particularly regarding its cultural and security implications. Wilders consistently argues that Germany's generous immigration policies have created a domino effect, spreading instability to neighboring countries like the Netherlands. His opposition to Angela Merkel's 2015 refugee policies was one of his most vocal campaigns. Wilders warned that the decision would lead to rising crime, social fragmentation, and overburdened public services. His recent electoral triumph has further empowered him, and he now aims to enforce stricter migration controls, including deporting irregular migrants to neighboring countries like Germany. They hate us. They despise our values. They harm us and our children, Wilders recently declared in a speech. We must stand up with resilience and strength, no more, never again. For Wilders, this is not just about politics. It is about defending a way of life. This is our country, our freedom, our lives, and we will defend it, never surrendering. Join me and we will win. We will prevail. Recent events, such as the tragic attack at a Christmas market in Magdeburg, where a Saudi refugee killed and injured innocent civilians, have reignited debates about immigration policies. Wilders did not hold back his criticism. Another barbaric attack in Europe, this time by a man from Saudi Arabia. Yet again, an unimaginable number of innocent victims, dead and injured. And yet again, politicians shedding crocodile tears. I have been saying it for over 20 years. Enough with these open borders. For Wilders, such incidents are not isolated but part of a broader systemic issue plaguing Germany. Rising crime rates linked to migration have left many Germans feeling unsafe in their own cities. A study revealed that knife attacks have increased by nearly 20% over the past 5 years, with a disproportionate number involving recent immigrants. Housing shortages exacerbate these challenges as overwhelmed public housing systems lead to shortages for both migrants and German citizens, fueling resentment and social tensions. Figures like Elon Musk and Alice Weidel have voiced similar frustrations, but Wilders' proximity to Germany and his growing influence in Europe make his criticism particularly urgent. Germany's leadership remains divided on immigration, and Wilders' remarks add fuel to an already heated debate. Chancellor Olaf Scholz defended his policies of emphasizing that Germany's approach reflects its moral obligations. At a press conference, Scholz dismissed external criticism, stating, "We have freedom of speech, but freedom of speech also means people can say things that are untrue and provide poor political advice." Friedrich Merz, advocating for more controlled immigration, also criticized populist leaders like Wilders and Alice Weidel, accusing them of exploiting tragedies for political gain. Nevertheless, their critiques resonate with a growing segment of the German population, disillusioned with traditional parties. Wilders argues that Germany's politicians are burying their heads in the sand. German leaders ignore reality while the rest of Europe bears the brunt of their mistakes, he said. His alliance with Weidel and Musk signals a broader push to challenge the status quo in Germany and across Europe. Wilders' warning is not just directed at Germany, it concerns Europe's future. If Germany continues to ignore the problems of rising crime and unchecked migration, the consequences could be catastrophic. Wilders warns of further strain on neighboring countries like the Netherlands, whose public services and border security are already stretched thin due to Germany's policies. In the Netherlands, many see Wilders' election victory as a necessary step to push back against Germany's influence. Moreover, a weakening Germany could embolden populist movements across Europe and deepen divisions within the EU. Viktor Orban's resistance to Brussels and Giorgia Meloni's calls for stricter border controls reflect a growing backlash against central EU policies. Wilders' critique aligns with this broader trend, signaling a potential shift in European politics. As one analyst put it, Germany's decisions will determine whether Europe unites or fractures further. If Berlin fails to act, the consequences could destabilize the entire continent. Germany bears responsibility not just for itself, but also for Europe's peace. For Wilders, the solution is clear. Germany must act immediately to secure its borders, reform its immigration policies, and prioritize the safety of its citizens. His message to Germans is unambiguous. No more. Never again. This is our country, our freedom, our lives, and we will defend it. But this is not just about politics, it's deeply personal. For ordinary Germans, this is about more than debates in Berlin. It's about the safety of their neighborhoods, the stability of their economy, and the future of their families. Wilders' warning strikes at the heart of these concerns, resonating far beyond politics. At the same time, Wilders warns that time is running out. Any hesitation by German leaders could result in irreparable damage. History shows us that bold decisions in times of crisis make the difference between progress and downfall, Wilders emphasized. Germany must find this courage. The question remains, will Germany's leaders listen, or will they continue on a path that, according to Wilders and others, leads to ruin? The decisions made now will not only shape Germany's future but also determine the fate of Europe as a whole. Geert Wilders' message goes beyond the simple critique of policy. It challenges Germany's role as a leader in Europe and questions whether its government still has the capacity to address the issues plaguing the continent. For decades, Germany has been viewed as a pillar of European stability, its economic strength and political influence driving the EU forward. However, Wilders paints a very different picture, one of a nation in denial, blinded by idealism, and incapable of recognizing the practical consequences of its decisions. Wilders' rise in the Netherlands reflects a broader wave of political transformation across Europe. As populist leaders gain momentum, traditional parties find themselves under increasing pressure to adapt or risk irrelevance. Germany's reluctance to address mounting concerns about migration, public safety, and social cohesion has made it a focal point for this discontent. According to Wilders, Germany's policies are no longer just a domestic issue, they have become a European problem. Germany's open borders do not exist in isolation, Wilders argues. They affect every neighboring country, creating a ripple effect that destabilizes the entire region. This domino effect, he contends, has placed an unsustainable burden on nations like the Netherlands, Austria, and Denmark, which are forced to deal with the secondary consequences of Germany's migration policies. In his view, the EU's unwillingness to hold Germany accountable has only exacerbated the problem. The implications of Wilders' critique extend beyond migration and border security. He questions whether Germany's broader leadership in the EU is still viable. For Wilders, the crisis is symptomatic of a deeper issue, the failure of Germany's political elite to connect with the realities faced by ordinary citizens. German politicians live in a bubble, he said. They make decisions based on ideology, not on the practical needs of their people or their neighbors. This cannot continue. This sentiment resonates with many Europeans who fear that the EU has drifted too far from its original purpose of economic and political cooperation. Leaders like Viktor Orban, Giorgia Meloni, and now Wilders argue for a return to national sovereignty, emphasizing the importance of strong borders, cultural identity, and local governance. Wilders' critique of Germany is part of a larger ideological battle over the future direction of Europe. The stakes could not be higher. If Germany fails to address its challenges, Wilders warns, the repercussions could extend far beyond Europe's borders. He points to the rise of global instability, the growing influence of authoritarian regimes, and the erosion of democratic values as warning signs of what could happen if Europe remains divided. The world is watching, he said. If Germany falls, Europe falls. And if Europe falls, the West itself could be at risk. For Germany, this moment represents a crossroads. Chancellor Scholz and other leaders must decide whether to double down on their current policies or make significant course corrections. The decisions they make will have profound consequences not only for their own citizens, but also for the future of the European Union. Wilders' warning, though polarizing, reflects a growing sense of urgency felt by many across the continent. Yet the German government faces a daunting challenge, how to balance its commitment to humanitarian values with the practical need for security and social stability. Critics of Wilders argue that his rhetoric oversimplifies complex issues and risks inflaming tensions. They point out that migration is not the sole cause of Germany's challenges, and that addressing problems like crime and housing shortages requires comprehensive solutions, not just stricter border controls. Even so, Wilders' message has struck a chord. His framing of the debate as a matter of national survival, our country, our freedom, our lives, taps into a deep-seated fear that the European way of life is under threat. Whether or not one agrees with his views, it is clear that his words have forced a reckoning. Germany can no longer afford to ignore the concerns of its citizens or the criticisms of its neighbors. The coming months will be critical as Germany grapples with its internal divisions and mounting external pressure. The choices it makes could set the tone for Europe's future. Will it rise to the occasion, as Wilders insists it must, or will it falter under the weight of its own contradictions? One thing is certain. The debate over Germany's role in Europe is far from over, and the consequences of inaction could be irreversible. Wilders ends his warning with a call to action, urging not just Germany but all of Europe to confront the realities of the present crisis. This is not just about politics, it's about the survival of our way of life, he said. The time for complacency is over. Europe must decide, will we stand together and protect our future, or will we allow ourselves to be torn apart by indecision and division? The choice is ours to make. As Germany weighs its options, the rest of Europe watches with bated breath. The decisions made in Berlin will reverberate far beyond its borders, shaping the trajectory of the European project for years to come.